My job was to keep the peace among the drug dealers, pimps, and prostitutes there. And those were my coworkers. Truth is not for comfort, but for liberation. Truth is not a medicine, it's a killer. I've realized that we grieve deeply because we love so strong. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? The love of my daughter was one of the things that kept me going. I had to keep in mind that she needed a father.
Have you ever witnessed any sort of like money laundering going on or anything kind of crazy?
Yeah. This dude's the feds, bro.
No, I sound like it, right?
I never saw that. Me?
So, where do we begin,
dude? We gotta begin. Should we go?
Because we were introduced when he told us about you, it was just straight up oh, this guy's super cool. He owns a chain of hotels. So let's start there. Let's start there. I want to talk about.
You know what I find interesting is that's an industry I don't think that's easy to get into, huh? Is it
easy to get into it? It's not easy to survive in it.
To maintain.
That would have been a good start line right there, right? We'll throw that in there.
No, I think he started. Are we recording? Yeah, we're recording.
We're recording. We're live.
So how many hotels do you actively run right now?
All right, so let me start with this. Prior to the pandemic, when we first were hanging out and talking, we had about 20 hotels, depending on how you count it. Yeah. Some we were bringing on board, others not, and then. If you think back just a short period of time, the economy was flipping shut down. Literally. 60 to 0, like that, right? So that was rough because you got mortgages due, you got clients to deal with, you got payroll to pay. You know, if you've got a union property we were talking about before, then you still have to be paying benefits. It's a crazy time, right? And so right now we have 4 hotels in our portfolio.
Oh, so shrunk a lot.
We shrunk.
Yeah.
But we're still alive. Unlike a lot of management companies, hotel developers, they're gone. They've lost their portfolios, or they're handed all the hotels back to the bank or whatever it was. It was a bloodbath in the industry, in both restaurants and hotels, the whole hospitality thing. Mm-hmm. So so we're down to 4 properties that are in the portfolio.
And do you think surviving the bloodbath, was that strategically done, or you just got lucky and oh my God?
No, I didn't get lucky. I think there were some people that were betting against us.
Okay,
and I kind of like that in a way.
Competition wanted
Yeah, there are a lot of hotel companies, management companies, development companies that aren't even around any longer. Crazy. And and we decided we were going to continue to fight. And I feel a little bit think about any of the Rocky movies. You're bloodied and you're knocked down and you get back up.
Everyone's telling you to quit, but you're just keep going at it.
Yeah, and we're very close to that comeback victory. So the last couple of years, Adam, we've been actually last 3 years actively putting together an investment group, big, several $100 million to go on an acquisition spree.
Which is so cool because you didn't just survive. You're coming back with a punch.
Oh, we're going to come back bigger, better.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like to live my life this way, but there is a little bit of a "I told you so," a stick in the eye to the people who have said, "Oh, you're not going to make it." But we've got a 23-year track record of success in our organization, and so it's not like we're just a fly-by-night, let's try this industry that we've never been in before. Yeah. But you'd asked, is it an easy industry to get into? All right, so I fell into it basically after I spent a bunch of years in the military. I don't know if you remember, I was in the Green Berets and Special Forces for a bunch of years.
Wow, that's not easy at all.
No, that was a pretty awesome experience, actually.
Respect.
I'd mentioned where we, some time around the world, and that was where my travels, a lot of my travels came from. And so I had that kind of can-do, defy the odds spirit about me, and I knew how to build teams and inspire people and, survey a quote unquote battlefield, because business feels like a battlefield half the time, right?
Especially during COVID for you, I'm sure. Literally.
Yeah. And so I'd learned a lot from the military that I applied to it, but I had fallen into it while I remember being on deployment a couple of times and thinking, wow, if these idiots can run a country, I can run a country. How hard can it be? Literally, that was the thought I had. So I thought, well, maybe I'll get out and get my degree in political science, work for the State Department, work for one of the 3-letter agencies. Thank God that never happened. But my first job out was as a night auditor at a little no-tell motel in San Francisco. And I went in at 11 o'clock at night and got off at 7 in the morning.
Oh, and,
graveyard shift. Graveyard shift.
Oh.
Yeah. And it was right in the Tenderloin. I don't know if you guys know San Francisco at all, but it's like one of the ghettos in San Francisco. And the joke I kind of tell is that my job was to keep the peace among the drug dealers, pimps, and prostitutes.
Keep the peace.
And those were my coworkers. Literally.
Oh my God.
That's kind of cool. You probably saw a really interesting transition looking back until now, like who your regular customers are and the people you shake hands with.
Hey, Cinnamon. Hey, Larry.
Every day.
How's business booming?
Yeah, because this was a little no-tell motel. Paid by the hour, sometimes.
Paid
by the hour.
Oh, it was crazy.
Man.
We were right in the shadow of the federal building.
Interesting.
And and
federal building?
What's that?
The federal building.
The federal building in San Francisco, right in the shadow of it.
Wow.
Any interesting?
So those were some of the clients.
I was trying to build a joke up to it.
I'm sorry, I crushed you.
It's okay. The joke's there.
Wow.
But you get that, right?
That's
so it was a
funny.
pretty crazy time. Like the guy who worked the 7 to 3 shift, his name was Gino. He was the coolest guy, but he was on parole for being a pimp. His wife was our executive housekeeper. Her name was Dee. The guy who worked the 3 to 11 shift, who I relieved, his name was Damien, crazy name, but he was at the local heroin dealer. I'd come in one night and he had OD'd behind the front desk, and I had to revive him and call 911. And it was a cast
Dude,
of
he's
characters.
literally keeping the peace. Like,
No, I'm serious.
You're for real.
There were plate glass windows there, and there's a little bullet hole that was in that plate glass window that was there when my first day of work, and I thought, oh, this is going to be a scene. Now, I was much bigger and more muscular and a little bit more intimidating back then. So I'm sure when they saw me apply for this job, they were like, You're hired. I don't care whether you can do anything.
Only for the night shift. You need nobody else.
Yeah. But I was there for a few months, and an investment group came in and bought this 44-room rundown motel with the intention of turning it into what is now called a boutique hotel. Mm-hmm. And so our company was considered one of the vanguards of the boutique hotel industry, creating this independent, cool vibe. And so renovated the hotel.
What's a boutique hotel?
A boutique hotel is an independent hotel, generally has high levels of service, great style, great amenities, a hip hotel, unlike a travel lodge or a corporate Marriott type of property.
And the style is kind of like, I'm assuming they kind of like base it off of like the vintage existing style that already is within the hotel.
So for the motel, yes, and that we didn't do that, but now I kind of coined this phrase, and we have the trademark for it, called motique, where you take a motel and you merge it with a boutique hotel. And turn it into something really cool.
Yeah. Was that part of like I guess somewhat of an idea of like gentrifying that area since it was a rough area?
Yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
It was, huh?
Yeah, very rough. And so we had a restaurant there as well that we had leased out for years, and then we ended up operating it. And but this group, when they came in and renovated it, it kind of happened naturally because we hired a salesperson and she started going after comedians. And so we started getting people who were playing at the comedy clubs in town. And then the next logical thing was we started going after rock and roll bands.
Nice.
Back then it was Nirvana and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Rolling Stone and Linda Ronstadt and Gypsy Kings and all those types of people.
Wow.
Yeah, very cool. And it's still there today. It's called the Phoenix Hotel. I still own a couple percentage points in that property. But we ended up calling it like the crossroads for the creative because anytime, like I'll bet we could go there now and there's at least one tour bus probably parked in that parking lot of someone really cool. And it'd be very interesting, very fun to see two different bands there hanging out in the parking lot. I mean, out in the pool area, talking, building relationships. And interestingly, I'm on this board now of this organization called Raven Drum Foundation that was founded by Rick Allen and his wife, Lauren Monroe. I don't know if you know Rick Allen, the drummer from Def Leppard. You probably know the band Def Leppard. Mm-hmm. He lost his arm in a car accident.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Does he
what
still
do you do
drum?
when you're a drummer and you lose an arm? Right? So he stayed in the band, and he's been touring. You know,
wait, he still drums?
Still drumming. They rigged up a drum kit.
How? Like, did he put like a prostate arm?
Nope. He does it with his feet, and they've got some special drum kit, and he's still touring 40 years
Legend.
later.
Shout out to him.
Yeah,
exactly.
Wow.
Very inspiring, right?
Heck yeah.
And so this, we got two stories going on here at the same time. But so what we do at Raven Drum is that we help people who are dealing with trauma, post-traumatic stress, that kind of thing. It's called complementary alternative medicines, to help them integrate back into society, because you guys have traveled around the world. Just doing prayers is like there's a music, there's a tonality, right, that changes your mind.
100%.
And so so we do that at Raven Drum Foundation. But anyway, one of the guys that I met through there when I first got on the board is a drummer, Wally, who used to play for Sheryl Crow and Jackson Browne. And we know each other. Like, where did we meet? And we pieced it together that we met at this little motel 40 years ago.
No way.
In San Francisco.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it's crazy. It's just a really crazy small world. But so some people start in the hotel industry like I did. You start at, quote unquote, the bottom. And you work your way up, right? But most hotel owners are just investors. They made money somewhere else, or they're a CPA,
Inherited.
or a real estate jockey, or an attorney. And they make money that way, and they buy a hotel. And that usually does not go so well.
So usually, like in the hotel industry, have you ever, like, being in the industry for how long now?
A long time.
For a long time.
35
You've
years
seen
probably.
other investors, you've seen other people now. Like, out of that, have you ever, like, witnessed any sort of like money laundering going on, or anything like kind of crazy? Because a lot of people do that. Because I watched a show, The Ozarks, right?
Yeah.
This dude's the feds, bro.
No, I sound like it, right?
I never saw that. Me?
I don't recall.
So
I don't recall that. What were we talking about?
repeat that one more time, Larry.
Broughton, B-R-O-U.
I almost spit out my drink, man.
Well, listen, we do bump it. Listen, there's
off the record, so
off the record. Oh, well, if it's off the record,
We haven't turned the cameras on yet.
Well, there is a very famous hotelier in Los Angeles was known. He's been busted. Family members have been busted for gun running in that.
Running?
Gun?
No way.
No way.
Yes.
Wait,
yes.
so this is an interesting topic. So, like, what, like, again, FBI, we're not doing anything weird here, but, like, what sort of things?
I've heard stories about this.
Yeah. What sort of things?
A friend of a friend told me.
Allegedly.
What sort of things have you, like, heard or witnessed? Like, is it is it like? Because he's saying money laundering, but you're saying like gun running. So
it all runs together.
It could, yeah.
It all goes together. I mean, because you got to get the money from somewhere, right?
Interesting.
So yes, it's more difficult today because not as much cash goes through a typical hotel.
Mm-hmm.
In a casino, for sure, but that is so buttoned down. It's difficult to do that now, unless you, like you said, the Ozarks, because that's real life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen the Ozarks.
The Ozarks is an actual
happen.
spot.
But it does. It does indeed happen. Thank goodness, though, the folks that I run with, we've got a really good reputation, and we can kind of snip it out. And we have great law firms who help us on this. I'm not saying this to be braggadocious, but there was an award that I was given a bunch of years ago called the National Business Leader of Integrity Award.
Nice.
Okay. Dan Cathy from Chick-fil-A got it the year after I got it.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of like, it's a prestigious award.
I bet that feels good.
Yeah. So if people know that I got an award for national business leader of integrity, they're not going to be approaching me to launder money
for
them.
Why not, Larry? What's wrong?
Well, it could be a great cover, I guess, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Ideas are percolating here. No, but yes, of course. I've got a director or a VP of business development, and he's been in the industry and banking industry for years, and he has seen some really crazy stuff. You're right. I mean, when you're talking tens of millions to hundreds of millions of dollars of assets and millions of dollars coming through those doors, there are going to be some nefarious activities in any industry.
For sure.
Speaking of the New York, you're saying he's a New York Stock Exchange. What did you say? He said it was in the banking space.
He's in the banking space.
Oh yeah, speaking of the banking space, what was it? I forget his name. The guy that white collar crime, $40 billion, $50 billion.
Oh, you were talking about it.
Yeah, I was watching it. I was literally watching.
E starts with an E.
Oh my God, is Alex here? Yeah, what's the documentary of the guy I was watching? What's his name? Come on, you would know. The guy who basically had like a fake investment.
Not Emerson.
Are you talking about Bernie Madoff?
Yes, Bernie Madoff.
Yeah, there's no E in that.
Okay,
though.
yeah, well, that was.
I don't know where the E came from. Who said
Bernie,
the E?
maybe
Emerson.
E and Bernie.
Who said E?
Yeah, Bernie Madoff.
I said Bernie Madoff.
His middle name starts with an E.
I was watching. Have you seen? I'm sure you're familiar with the story.
Oh, sure.
Have you seen the documentary that came up on Netflix about it?
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Like how, he basically stole like $46 billion or something like that. Like
among very sophisticated investors, celebrities. It's the
how do you pull that off?
Well, it's the long con, right? It's oftentimes you start out.
Pull that off?
Number one. Number three. Well, I think the credibility through association goes a long way.
No doubt.
Right? I mean, Epstein is another one. How did he? I mean, crazy stuff there, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If I'm hanging out with this person, then because I'm hanging out with that person, there must be something good in with these people, right? Despite what their sly and nefarious intentions are. You got to be either evil or just have no character or conscience.
Ethics, yeah.
To do that kind of thing.
No.
How does God play a role for you in business?
It's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of those guys lack that.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I've had various phases in my life where I've always felt like God's been like, right here, buddy, you know? And I think it was easier for me during some seasons of my life. You know, I was making bad decisions and that kind of thing, to like pretend that he wasn't there. And sadly, I'm like a lot of these people, it takes me hitting bottom and scraping along for a while to say, okay, maybe like I can't do this. I don't know if anybody's been through recovery programs, but there's a saying there that, you know, my best efforts got me here to this really dark space. You know, this is where they start talking about higher powers. For me, that's God, right? Not some mystical, crazy thing, but it's God. And so particularly the older I get, but different tragedies and traumas in my life, it's always been like, he's the constant. Mm-hmm. You know, not money, not ex-wives or former spouses or girlfriends, or it's God is the constant.
Mm-hmm. I love that you said it like that. God is the constant.
I'm so glad you asked that question because, oddly enough, I think right when we finished like praying in the other room, I was sitting there and I literally just had this thought where I was like, I feel like Larry is just a very intuitive guy. Like his intuition is like on 10 all the time, you know? And it's amazing how you mention that because, you know, we have this belief where it's like, even though our morals are taught through the faith, you also have this intuition that's within you that comes pretty much from the soul, where it's like when you're doing something wrong, you feel like something, like you know it's wrong, you know?
Yeah. One of the things I've realized maybe over the years is that to me, intuition is God whispering in my ear.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Yeah, I agree completely.
And when I can think of several times when I've had the instinct or intuition to do one thing and I've gone the other way, and it's not always, but usually been disastrous for me. So the older I've gotten, the more I've kind of, if I feel it, I can't explain it oftentimes, but I've got to stay with that.
Go. Yeah.
And it's counterintuitive to a lot of people, but I think that's the interesting thing about God. I mean, teachings over the years have shown, you know, that it's not always the way that the logical people are going to be thinking that's the right path. We're going to go against the grain.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was watching a video. I love watching it's like Muslim scholars like debating people.
Yeah, I just was watching one yesterday.
Topics.
Yes.
Yeah, so interesting. And so he was talking about how obviously I'm nothing close to his level of genius because even the way he communicates, I'm like I couldn't even keep up with you if I wanted to. Yeah. But he was talking about how like God works outside of the construct of what we believe life is. Like if you think about it, he created you, so he created the way you think, the way you walk, the way you talk, your logic, your everything, your limitations. He made it like that on purpose. It was all self-engineered, right? Yeah. And so that limitation is, I think, where a lot of people who don't believe in God struggle with because they can't accept it. They're like, no, there's no way. I'm limitless. I'm powerful. I can, whether it's even hearing some entrepreneurs try to figure out how to escape death or, let's link in our lives with this technology or let's upload our
bodies or something.
Yeah, or upload our soul into this computer. It's like you're not gonna play God, Yeah. But I've noticed that the trend that I see in people who cut corners, they may say they believe in God, or some people even use it as a way to seem like they're on the right path.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's abused in a lot of ways.
There are some of these pastors and padres in prison who, they believe in God, but they've, done malicious things.
Yeah.
There's a special place in hell for people like that.
Yeah. So are you Christian by faith? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I am. I've always been very open. I don't judge people based on, that's not my job.
Yeah.
I see a movement, though, happening over the last several years anyway, of people coming to faith, realizing I can't do this.
It's interesting, and I don't even think it's a faith, but people have kind of been chasing this whole of I'm spiritual but not religious, to where it's same thing. They want to detach themselves from the accountability factor of a God being there and judging them at the end of their life, right? But they want to still be connected with the elements and believe in a higher power and all that stuff. So I feel the spiritual side, yes, but actual faith, I'm not sure.
Dude, you're right. I like the way you put that. I lived in San Francisco for 14 years, and the New Age movement was very strong there, and there was a lot of that, spiritual, not religious. I used that line for a while in my life. There was a season in my life.
To get girls
exactly
or what?
What's that?
To get girls or what?
Yeah, Bibi would slay with that line.
It's always got to go to the girls. Right?
Yeah,
I know, right?
I'm spiritual.
Who
else is using that line?
Just being realistic. You're 6'5". You didn't need to have a line. You just walked in. It was just all right, cool.
Not me. But I did. If I'm being honest, it was a cop out because I wasn't committing to God, and so I agree with you on that. There's an interesting guy down in who's I don't know what he would call himself, but he's definitely a Muslim scholar, I think, down in San Diego.
Farouk.
What's that?
Farouk.
Is that
Uthman?
I think so.
Uthman Farouki, I think his name is Uthman Farouk.
He's on the street and he'll debate, he knows the Christian Bible better than these pastors that are out there, and he chews them up.
Yeah, dude, oh my God, I love
in a respectful,
way, yeah.
But it's I think that there are I see a lot of people converting to Islam.
So what are your thoughts on Islam, man? Do you watch those videos and you go do you ever question your own faith at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think God has a problem with me questioning as long as it all comes back to him. I think God's shoulders are big enough.
Now, you know what I find interesting about Islam? I don't know if you guys know this, but the first couple of verses of the Quran is a challenge for the reader. So I haven't looked into the Bible that much, but I know from what I heard in the Christian faith, it's kind of looked down upon to ask certain questions, or in certain denominations and stuff like that. But it's interesting because if you open the Quran, the first 4 verses, it's God challenging the reader, go ahead, question however you want to question me, because at the end of the day, if it's the truth, it'll pass all tests.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But what's your stance on that? Do you watch those videos and go what's this Islam all about? Or have you ever considered it as a religion at all? Or?
Yeah, I've considered it. I spent some time in the Middle East. I've dated when I was single. I'm single now, but I just younger. I was really lost in trying to figure out. I've studied Buddhism, Hinduism, a lot of different things. And I was just trying to figure out, what is this all about? I grew up, I don't know if grew up is the right word, but my parents were Methodist, right? But I didn't understand that I could personally have this connection, this heart connection with God. Most of my life, I didn't feel like, I don't know if worthy is the right word, because are we ever really worthy? I don't know. But I felt like I was so broken, damaged, whatever, you know, that I didn't that's what I didn't deserve. I didn't deserve to be loved. Right.
Interesting.
And so, you know, if you can't love yourself, how can you love God? How can you love anyone else? You know, it's one of those really weird things.
That's interesting.
So, so because of my, you know, ignorance with like, you know, really all other religions and whatnot, you said growing up Methodist kind of like gave you this almost like hardwired belief that you can't have a personal connection with God. Is that something that's taught within?
I don't know. I just felt like this is my own personal experience. And I'm not a Christian theologian. It's really only the last few years where I've leaned in to faith. I guess I've always had not always, much of my life I've had a belief that there is something bigger out there. I know that it's God now, but I really didn't know, like, there's something bigger out there. I mean, there's been so many times where I, like literally should be dead or in jail, and there was something miraculous that
happens.
That happened.
Yeah.
Like you can't explain it.
Well, with all due respect to those who don't believe in God, I think it's very, like, I guess the word, I don't want to say stupid, but I really feel that way sometimes.
I'll say it. It's very stupid.
No. I mean, I want to be respectful, you know, but, like, I think it's very stupid of you to think, like to me, the whole, like, Big Bang Theory or, like, it all, like, just existing on the perfect moment of time and space and matter and blah, 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 all coming together. Like, I'm like, dude, there's no way, like, somebody crafted this.
Yeah.
Somebody like, just look at you. Like, this is not like you don't just pop out of nowhere.
And the patterns over and over.
Yeah, you know,
it's pretty crazy.
It's crazy how the design from even the smallest existing thing, the atom, once you zoom into it and look at it from like a microscopic perspective, it has a very similar design when you zoom out and look at the universe.
Yeah.
They literally look almost identical, right? Yeah. In the way things kind of like revolve around something. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and what I'm finding more and more interesting is that science is now, the more we get advances in science, the more it almost proves
100%.
that God exists.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I've heard of so many like stories recently of like scientists who were complete atheists.
Oh yeah.
On the journey to trying to figure out the quote-unquote truth to prove that God doesn't exist.
Right, debunk it.
They end up converting and like believing in it because the logical because it gets so evident that like there is something that you just can't ignore it anymore. It's like it's right in front of you.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I was actually watching one of those like debates online, and he was talking about how actually Islam is probably the only like actually true monotheistic religion where you have like. It's the only religion where you actually you can have a relationship with God personally. Because if you look at all the religions, like Buddhism, they believe in like, they don't even believe in a God. It's a whole different type of.
I think it's reincarnation. Is that Buddhism?
They believe. I think they like
Buddhism. I don't think is an actual religion. It's a way of life.
Yeah, and then same thing with like Hinduism, and then Judaism. Apparently, like it's getting even more strict now, where like you have to be born into it. So like, you can't convert unless like.
I wouldn't say now it's been like that.
Huh? It's been like that, but
like if your mother's Jewish, and then you're gonna.
Yeah, but I heard something recently about like how like if you had some relations, you could somewhat enter, but now it's like even more closed off, huh?
Shout out Madonna.
Yeah, and so he was talking about how, and then Christianity like has like, for example, Jesus is like a. You know, you guys put him up on like a pedestal close to God. So he was talking about how like Islam is actually truly the only religion that states you as a human can have a direct relationship with your Creator.
There's debates even in the Christian community, depending on what denomination there is. Like, you know, is God actually, or is Jesus really the Son of God? You know,
what do you think?
Is he God? I believe that Jesus is a savior. I think he's more than just a prophet. But again, I'm not a theologian. I'm kind of on a journey. Right now. You
know, I gotta not to take a steep dive here.
Yeah.
But
You've been diving, dude. Just keep.
This is my part. This is my second sit down with him.
Just keep diving, bro. Up, man, Send it, bro. Just go.
So you're very comfortable with Larry.
Yeah.
You're very open. Like, and thank you, by the way, just to even be open to these kind of conversations. Because I'm sitting here, I'm like, wow, we're having a podcast about religion now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I will say this for anything I say, and this has been the caveat for the last several years. Everything I say may be wrong. Okay,
I might change my mind later.
That's my caveat.
But it's very humbling, though. It's very humbling that you're even willing to accept, like, hey, look, I may be wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not, stubborn.
Well, I think if we
everything
consider, life is about learning, right? And there are things that I believe today that I didn't believe 15 years ago. And then all of us, when we were 20, there was an omnipotence of youth, right? We knew everything. Mom and dad didn't know anything, right? That's that most people in their 18,
we're
19,
limitless.
20s, yeah, exactly.
Unbreakable.
Yes.
Young forever.
Yeah. Well, guess what?
So, your son passed away recently.
Oh, yeah, my son passed away.
Oh,
yeah.
God bless.
May he rest in peace.
Thank you.
I don't even know where to begin with that. I'm just very curious because, like, people I connect with on the podcast, I genuinely watch their journey. I get very intrigued and interested in seeing how they develop, and I keep a close eye. Yeah. And I watched you, like, go through it, and I remember, like, it also happened, like, right after, like, because this was last year, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you were already kind of going through the whole 2020 hit with your business.
Oh, jeez. You're connecting some dots here, man.
Yeah. So, like, you're getting, like punched.
Yeah.
Look at Larry before 2020 and his relationship with God versus today.
Yeah.
How has your son's passing away changed the way you deal with it?
Let me preface this, 'cause I don't mind talking about this, by the way, but I may get emotional. And if I'm getting emotional, it's not because I'm, maybe sad, but I've realized that we grieve deeply because we love so strong. You know what I mean? And so it's only like, what I grieve is, the joy that I would feel, or like just missing him. So
the memories.
If I get a little bit emotional, don't worry. I'll be fine. But I was having a conversation with a couple of buddies of mine just a couple of nights ago, Wednesday night, about this, that I feel like my connection to God is stronger now than ever. In spite of relationships between a father and a daughter are very special. I'm blessed that I have my daughter Emmy, who's 22, and I had my son Ben, or still have my son Ben, who was 17 when he was killed in a car accident. And but there's something when a man has a son who is meant to carry on the name, and for 17 years, I knew this was my legacy. Like I was building my company knowing that there's a possibility.
Yeah.
There was a hope, at least, that he might be interested in this. And then he's gone. I will tell you, I was broken. I was broken for a bunch of reasons. I'm the one who actually found my son, by the way. He wrecked, you guys are from around here, back on Santiago Canyon, which is a country road here in Orange County.
Cook's Corner.
Yeah, out past there. Yeah, where there
Black
was
Star.
Yeah, there was there's just a shooting.
There was that shooting recently.
Yeah, so it's a couple miles down the road.
I used to always go there with, like, at night, just
Yeah.
but yeah, I get that.
So
I'm
it's
sorry.
windy roads and it's up and down. And it's great if you got a fast car or you're on motorcycles. It's great, but he lost control of his car and launched the car. And just something very strange just happened, and it pitched his car in a weird direction. He hit a tree, and it literally split the car in half. And in his body was, no parent is ever prepared to see their child like this. And so I was the first one there.
You were the first? How did you find out?
Well, parents have these things called phones, and they have 360, and you can track them. Listen, he was a great kid. People loved him. But he liked to do graffiti once in a while. And so we'd keep an eye on him. Yeah. And we knew where he was going. the funny thing is, like, we had an amazing day. We can get into that if you want, but we knew he was going to be driving to a friend's house, and so his mom and I were have been apart for 12 years, I think, at this point, but, you know, co-parent, and we would just check on the kids. Where are they? And if you know Santiago Canyon, there's no real place to pull off, right? And so we saw that his car was stopped on Santiago Canyon Road. And so his mom calls me, and I'm about to call her. It's like, hey, have you heard? Because we've been texting him and calling and no answer. And so right then my heart just sunk. Oh. And so I got in my car and just sped over there, you know, the pin drop, and got over there. And you know, like when you're using GPS, it says, you know, destination 400 feet on your right. Well, I could see 400 feet on my right. There was no vehicle. And so he had gone off the road, and I got there and saw him, and I was pissed at God. Pissed. And honestly, I'm a little ashamed, not a little, I'm ashamed to admit this, but I cursed God when I saw this. And I called 911, called his mom, you know, called family members, all there waiting for people to, you know, the CHP and all those folks to show up. And, you know, I was just hugging him there, and you just, you know, feel your son in that kind of broken condition. But as soon as the fire trucks pulled up, and then, you know, the sheriff's department, CHP, I just got my crap together, and I was just stoic. Boom. I went into action mode and just kept my stuff together. I got there about 6:30 at night, didn't leave the site until about 12:30. Then drove over to my former spouse's house. She's remarried, thank God. He's a great guy. And my daughter was there, and my daughter she was keeping it together. She was in shock, clearly. Giggling throughout the night, I guess. But when she saw me, it became real. And she just broke down in tears, like literally just fell down I was holding her, and her legs went out from under her. And I'm still trying to keep it together. And there's family and friends there. And when I finally got home at whatever time it was, 1:30 or 2 in the morning, I look in the mirror, and there was blood on my face. And I was like, why didn't any of these people, when I'm holding my daughter, talking to his mom, say, Larry, come here, let's clean that up. I was pissed at that. I was pissed at God, and I was cursing all night. Who are you? I've got so many flaws. I've sinned. I've betrayed you over and over again. And here I am, in this young, amazing person. So that went on for months, just wrestling privately in my home. But then I'd have to walk out and
act like everything's okay.
Act like I'm a business leader, and I'm a good employer, and I'm a good friend. And so it was a struggle.
So, but at the time too, like, business was hard too.
And business was hard, and we're trying to stay alive. No, I thought there's a story in the Old Testament about Job just getting crushed, by Satan. You know, and he's a good guy. And there were times, believe me, and not that I'm comparing myself to Job, but yes, we are sometimes prepared, is the way I like to look at it now. It's like, I look at it now with a little bit of distance, is I'm being trained to be the spiritual warrior that I know I'm supposed to be. If I'm going to go fight in an MMA match, I better be training hard. I better be in the gym. I better be working my ground game. I better be working on my whatever it is, right? Yeah. And I feel like I've been through some serious training.
Do you mind if I share with you an interesting perspective shift?
Sure.
So, like,
I'm open to anything, by the way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go for it.
We're taught, like, that the more loved you are by your Creator, the more He's going to test you. Mm-hmm. And it's due to many factors. One of them being because He truly wants to see you go to heaven.
Yes.
And He knows heaven isn't free. It's not cheap.
That's
either,
right. Yeah.
You know?
That's why it's so valuable.
Exactly. Because you have to go through so many things in life. And also another thing that my mom always taught me was, like, if you think about the devil being an actual, like, army, and he has, like, a whole thing going on, and his main mission and operation is to go against God's creation and make sure to create destruction, to him, trying to get you to a point where you crack and you start to, like, biggest thing is lose hope.
Yeah.
because that is the biggest win like Satan can get into anything. It's like, all right, you lost hope, we're good now, I can do anything. Because once you lose hope, hope is the only thing that attaches your faith. If you think about it, it's like the hope of tomorrow, the hope of a better life, the hope of heaven,
of Jannah, of heaven.
That's literally what. Like, it's interesting when you really dig deep to how like the world works. But you know, for me, I was always told that if you see Satan that way, you recognize that he has a mission to take people down, and that the closer you are to achieving what God sent you out to achieve, the harder he's going to try to knock you off.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's
if you're lukewarm, Satan doesn't even care.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's like, you're not even doing anything. But a man like you, powerful, successful, moving in a direction where like he has like a lot, you know, going for him, and people listen. He's you know, you're a very influential individual. You know, having someone like you be a man of faith can create a lot of like, not just momentum from a community standpoint, but you know, Satan doesn't want to see that happen.
Yeah, it's very...
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I believe that for sure. I've had so many people over the last year say, wow, I'm so inspired how strong you are, and you're still remaining upbeat, and you can still laugh and help people, and you're still serving in spite of what's happened to you. It's like, what's the option?
What else am I supposed to do?
I could curl up in the fetal position. I could go on a drunken binge. I could, go, do all kinds of terrible, terrible things. But that doesn't honor me. It doesn't honor the memory of my son. It doesn't honor God for sure, right? And I am more afraid of God than I am of anything. You know
what's awesome?
What's that?
Kind of a point I wanted to add on, and I think it was really amazing. Because he said something, and then you brought the idea of hope. Today, if you remember as well, the Friday sermon, because today's Friday, we have Friday prayer. Right. The Friday sermon, he was actually telling the story of Joseph.
No way.
He was telling the story of Joseph, and he literally just brought up the idea how no matter what happens, and he basically explained, imagine the years of Joseph almost getting killed by his brothers, and then him getting sold into, getting picked up by a caravan and sold into slavery.
Crazy, right?
And then years of imprisonment, right? You're not talking about something that happened in a few months. You're talking about years of his life.
Yep.
And the whole point of the sermon was you should never lose hope in the power of God, in what God has decreed for you. And no matter what it is you go through, at the end of the day, God has a very subtle way of being merciful to you, right? Yeah. A very subtle way in showing it. He doesn't necessarily just here's ease, It's kind of it comes in subtly to where it's you almost have to ponder upon it, and then you realize how beautiful that mercy came in. Yeah. And so this first of all, you said you were going to get emotional. I almost flipped and lost it right
I know, me too.
I almost lost it completely. Because you started off by putting it in perspective as a father, and I was just I'm losing my mind. Yeah. But I think this ended off on such a beautiful, beautiful note. And I mean, I can't even imagine what you went through. And I admire your strength. And, I pray you never have to witness such an experience in your life ever again.
Yeah, it's one of those things you don't wish it on your worst enemy, to be honest with you. But here's the thing that I understand is I'm a man, right? And I would rather that I'm the one who found them than a stranger, the CHP. This was my son. Yeah. His mother. Thank goodness it was me. The person who was supposed to have found him. Yeah. That changed me, right? And just from a clinical standpoint, what it did do as well is it reminded me I still have healing to do from other things that happened earlier in my life. I hadn't I thought I had dealt with some of the other traumatic things that happened in my life. And so I ultimately I did reach out to therapists. I did some EMDR therapy, and I did some other kind of things and talked it out, tried to get perspective from some folks, right? But I like how you talked about the beauty of the struggle, and the mercy that God offers us
through it.
Right? Grace and mercy are two of my favorite words, right? Because boy, think about in business or in relationships with our loved ones, if we didn't offer mercy and grace, it'd be a pretty lonely life, right? But there's something beautiful when someone has wronged you, sinned against you, whatever it is, and you can offer the forgiveness to ourselves and to other people, right? We don't have to do that. But boy, it's beautiful on the other side.
So what are, like, you went through, what I would say is probably one of the hardest challenges any man can go through, right? What are certain things that are pulling you out of it and, like, allowed you to, I know you said you have no choice, but was that really your mindset when it comes to, like, okay, I got to wake up tomorrow, be the leader I am, still run my business, still show up for everybody? Was it just because you had no choice, or did you have something else motivating you to keep pushing?
The love of my daughter was one of the things that kept me going. I had to keep in mind that she needed a father. So that was very important to me. I felt like I was wrestling a little bit with God and a little bit with Satan at the same time. Because I knew in my head that God was preparing me for something. But still emotionally, that was so raw. It's like I just didn't think I had the shoulders to carry it, right? And I'd be lying if I didn't say, hey, there were times I thought it would be easier if I weren't here. You know, like you said, I mean, there's enough other things going on in my life, right?
Yeah.
Like now this, are you kidding me? Right?
Wild.
And so I'm not the type of person where I'm singularly focused and that's it. I feel like most days I'm wrestling, and I feel like I have to be victorious at the end of the day. Like if I can rack up enough little wins throughout the day, then I feel like it was a good day. And I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
maybe let's
did I have a choice? Of course I had a choice.
Yeah.
You know, but I realized that the other choice would have been something that's not congruent with how God created me. I'm wise enough to know at this point that I've had certain gifting and talents that no one else has got, or few other people have. And I feel like it is I don't know if this is, theological or not, but I think it's a sin that if God has given me certain gifts, for me not to use those to better the world, that's a bad thing.
It's a disservice.
Yes. Yeah.
It's basically recognizing your purpose, basically.
Yeah.
That was the big thing for you.
Yeah. Purpose is an amazing thing, right? I mean, it's where meaning comes from. And Stoics talked about this all the time.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about Stoics at some point or another, but it seems like you're very in tune with the idea of Stoicism and stuff like that. Yeah,
I've been reading Marcus Aurelius for years and Seneca and all those guys. Yeah, I think it's pretty important, and I thank goodness. When I don't know, it's probably 15 years. There's a slide that I put in a lot of the keynote talks that I do. I do a lot of speeches on leadership, entrepreneurship, mindset stuff. Nice. And in most of them, I've got one of my favorite slides or quotes from Marcus Aurelius is that the art of life is more like wrestling than dancing. And to me, that says, in life, you're going to get an elbow to the chops. You're going to get a dislocated shoulder. You're going to get a bloody lip from time to time. It's not just out there as a nice wall.
It's not elegant.
Right? It's not elegant. It ain't pretty sometimes, but that's living, right? And what I'm liking about Western society right now is I think the pendulum is starting to swing back more towards the Stoics, more towards understanding that God plays an integral role in life.
That's important because, look, throughout all of history, throughout all of mankind, roles have always been a part of civilizations.
Yeah.
And we've lived thousands of years as human beings with these roles. And it wasn't until recently right, in history, that we started to mess around with the roles.
Right.
And then it took some time, but then now people are finally realizing the repercussions. They're seeing it.
Yeah.
To be like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this. Here's what needs to be done. Here's what my parents did. Here's what my previous generation did, et cetera, et cetera. This works.
Yeah.
We tried a different way. It didn't. It failed.
We tried to become gods ourselves.
Exactly.
What's interesting is there's an argument that basically says like we overcomplicate life more than what God intended it to be for us.
Yeah.
Like from an Islamic religion, a lot of people think like, oh, you're not allowed to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's restricting.
But it's restricting. But if you think about it, if I like sit down and write all the things you're allowed to do versus all the things you're not allowed to do, it's probably a list of like 10 or 15 versus like list of 100 or 200, right? But it's funny because society is so focused on just that 10 or 15 things that you think you're restricted, right? And so it kind of goes back to your point of like we overcomplicate it.
Well, and those 10 or 15 things that you're pointing to have been led to the degradation of society.
Yeah.
And so that's the key. We were talking about how Satan doesn't come out, I don't think Satan shows up as the big ugly monster. No. He's side of this.
He's your friend.
Yeah. Oh, come on, buddy. Let's go for a drink. Won't that be fun?
Just do it. It's fun.
Yeah, right.
He's in a red dress.
Right. And this is like truth, right? It's funny, it's the second time I'm going to mention this in the last 24 hours. But there is a saying I'd heard years ago. It was something like, truth is not for comfort, but for liberation. Truth is not a medicine. Oh, snap. It's a killer.
Huh.
And I think there's some value in that lesson, right? And I think that I'm hoping that society is coming back to what truth really is. That's where the liberation comes from.
Yeah.
That's big. I love that.
I'm gonna write that.
Yeah, you gotta write that one
down. You said something profound. You gave you're like, hey guys, I'm sometimes wrong, so on and so forth.
No, what I said is everything I say may be wrong.
Oh yeah, everything you say. Yeah,
it's not as graceful. It wasn't as graceful as that.
So let me make sure we're clear on that.
Looking back, in terms of how you are now as a leader in business and life, as a father. And just all areas that you're supposed to show up with as a man, the roles that you need to take in. What things did you believe to be truthful before your son's passing that you found out to be incorrect? And what perspective shifts have you gone through?
That's a deep one.
That is a deep one.
That's a deep one for sure.
There's not like bunches of things, Adam, that's coming to mind right now, except that I wish I would have leaned into what we're talking about right now. Do you guys know who Jordan Peterson is? My son, I turned him on to Jordan Peterson probably 6 years ago. Before what was it, 12 Rules for Life? He had the maps of meaning before that. And so, and he loved 12 rules, right? And we would talk around this theology thing. I wish we would have sat around like this more. My son, I think he adored me. I think he respected me, which is even more important. I think. I know that he loved me. But I guess the thing that I've learned most is that I need to be more vocal about what I believe. Because as you said, I know that there is, for good or bad, I have a platform. I am generally, besides this podcast, a pretty good communicator.
No, you've been awesome. I mean, this is probably one of the best podcasts we've done, to be honest with you. I have too frequently shied away from my faith and not spoken publicly enough about it. I've skirted around the issue a little bit. BB had commented about the, I'm spiritual, not religious. I gave up on that fakeness, a bunch of years ago, but I still haven't leaned into it.
It's comfortable. It's not liberating.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean,
Busted.
That's saying.
Yes, yes.
I really like that quote, by the way.
Yeah, that quote's amazing.
However, it's been for the last 6 months though. I guess the word that comes to mind is bold.
Good.
I'm more bold.
Nice.
Good.
I just don't care anymore because I do know that God has got my back, man.
How does that make you feel when you're bold and you're moving with a purpose? You don't care. You're gonna ruffle some feathers,
brother. I feel like a man, if I'm being honest.
And that's how you should.
I love it. I love it.
And
I like where this is going.
No, I love what you said there because.
Did anybody else feel like a testosterone boost right now? I'm lit. Go work out.
I love what you said because, you know, obviously I've learned so much from you and peers around me, and I'm still very young and learning. Mm-hmm. But I think one thing that my mom has always instilled in me is my belief and faith in God. Mm-hmm. And I actually have had a lot of physical injuries and times where like you said, I should have been dead. Yeah. But here I am standing in front of you somehow. And I truly do not fear anything.
Yeah.
And I don't even fear death. The only fear I have is meeting God with a lack of anything.
I'm with you, brother. I'm right there, man.
That's my actual fear. Like if I really dig into the depth of my soul, the only thing I fear is when I meet God, I don't have enough of what I should have had or what he expected of me. Yeah. And I don't deliver at the level he created or my purpose for. Like if he shows me, because you're going to be shown your life. Like if I don't want to be shown my life and then shown a different version of it, of the version that I actually, the one that tried, the one that actually led, the one that actually was faithful, etc. Yeah. Look what you could have done, but you didn't. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing that scares me. But like I love what you said, because you truly, when you have that mindset, or at least ever since like I've, been taught it, you move so differently. Like you just, nothing really can stop you.
Well, you feel differently, so you move differently, right? And I feel the same way. And I don't know if I said this, I was certainly thinking it earlier, but I just feel like it's a sin. If our potential has been revealed to us and we choose to lean back versus lean in, that's a sin. Because I just believe there's a book 100 years ago that was written, it's not 100 years ago, but it's probably back in the 60s or 70s, called Illusions by Richard Bach. It's the same guy who wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And there's a quote in there that says, if you're wondering if your mission on earth is complete, if you're alive, it's not.
It's not even like a way to quiz yourself to find out. It's just no. It's not. It's just one answer.
Right. Right. And so I find comfort in that, because what it does, and I do believe that that's true. Everyone who met my son always said he's an old soul, he's wise, he's whatever, right? He touched so many people. When we did we call it a celebration of life ceremony, 13 of his best friends got up on stage and talked about the impact that this 17-year-old kid had on his life. Like things I was trying to teach my son, like how do you shake someone's hand? If there's a new kid in school, you're the first one who's going to invite them into your friend group. Silly things too, like never take the stairs when you go into a pool. Right? Right? Silly things.
Be a man.
The lessons of being a man.
Be a man. Just jump in.
Exactly. All right, write this down. But am I right though? There are certain things. Always say thank you. This little thing, like tips that many of us didn't get when we were growing up. And so there's that where I feel like I can only believe that his mission was complete here. Also, I know that my mission's not complete. God has put a vision in my head about what I'm supposed to be doing, how I'm supposed to be impacting the world. And if I don't, that's my big fear. Like I show up and I'm going to be showing my life. It's like, this is really everything I gave you, all the talents I gave you. This is what you did with these gifts. Think about if somebody gives you a gift, or you go to give someone a gift and they deny it, like, no, I don't really want that, right? What's that? That's offensive, right? And I've been gifted talents and the ability to string words together and to be able to write books and the ability to lead and the ability to see talent in people that other folks can't see and that they oftentimes can't see in themselves. What am I doing with that? Mm-hmm. I know it's kind of heavy, but
do you mind sharing with us like what that vision is? Like, what do you? Why are you still alive, Larry? Like, what?
Yeah, I think that I'm supposed to be teaching, writing, inspiring about the power of entrepreneurship and leadership. I don't think that our government or any government is going to save our bacon, save our butts, save our whatever. Yeah. I think it's going to come down to the entrepreneur class.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And if there is a God-fearing entrepreneur class, all the better.
Oh, forget it.
That's
right?
Powerful.
It's right?
Unstoppable.
You're unstoppable.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
You brought this up in the last time when we did the interview.
Yeah. And so I think that my mission is to create more God-centered entrepreneurs and leaders who create jobs. Listen, more people have been lifted out of poverty in the last 25, 30 years through capitalism and entrepreneurship than any government program around the world. That's what I think we need to be doing. I think that's what my
Larry, you ever read the Quran before?
Yeah, I've read parts of the Quran. Yeah. When I used to go to UCSB, and I had 2 roommates who were Muslim.
What are your overall thoughts of Islam?
Well, again, I am not.
You have a lot of values that I know aligns with the religion.
Oh yeah. I think that if we could put down, the hammer. I was going to say hammer and sickle. That's communism. But I mean, if we could put down our swords and talk, I think that there is a lot of similarity. Of course, I mean, we share much of the Old Testament for crying out loud, right? Mm-hmm. So many of the same figures that are meant to teach us about morality and family and all that kind of stuff. We all know the same people. You're telling the story about Joseph, same thing, right? So, is this an intervention? Am I really here to be converted today?
No, man.
I'm kidding.
I like how you're touching him because he's the one.
I'll be honest.
He didn't reach you guys.
He's like, this is the second time I'm interviewing him. It's happening today. I feel that energy.
Keep going.
I'm coming from a place of
some pretty famous Christians have been converting to Islam recently. So
what's up? Who? This is you said somebody pretty famous converted?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who was it? Who?
Tate.
Oh, Andrew Tate. Oh, okay,
him and others.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So you were just talking about right now about how once again the whole idea where it almost seems like it'd be sinful not to take advantage of your strengths, of your qualities in order for the betterment of society. What is a way you would recommend for somebody to figure out what their personal strengths are?
Yeah. So I'm going to kind of tweak what you just said a little bit because there could be a negative connotation in it. You said take advantage of.
Okay. My bad. Yeah.
No, it's not your bad. It's just I want to make sure that people understand
100%.
Because there is the word exploited can sometimes be
negative connotations
as well, right? And it's not necessarily meant that way.
100%.
So, all right, so how can someone identify what their strengths are and what they're really good at? Yeah, so one thing, you got to have mentors in your life. Like this guy, I don't know you guys that well, but he's been searching for mentors for years, right? And surrounding yourself with people who are bolder and brighter than you are, right? So I think that's really important. I think some self-reflection is really important. There are a couple of assessments that I would encourage people to take, like the Clifton Strengths Finders identifies. They have generally 34, I think it is, or 36 inherent strengths that we have, and they rank your top 5 and all of them, and so you can see what your natural strengths are. Are you, whatever? There's a bunch of them. Strategic, or you're a maximizer, those kind of things. And then there's the Kolbe A Index. I know this is getting to sound a little bit wonkish, but this measures your cognitive brain. You've got the cognitive brain, which we all know, that's what goes on a resume. That's your training. That's your experience that you've got. The cognitive brain is what Aristotle used to talk about, and then we forgot about it for 1,500 years, and recently we've been starting to talk about the cognitive brain. So what's the cognitive brain? Well, that's how you kind of naturally, reflexively respond to stimuli, right? And then there's the affective brain, right? How do you feel, kind of thing. So I think finding out what your cognitive brain is, what are your inherent strengths, is really important. Read, try, experiment, push the boundaries, figure it out. You know, be willing to fail and fail often, but recover quickly. Mm-hmm. Right? I think there's a thing about wisdom, right? Wisdom comes from bad decisions.
Who said that? Didn't you say
there was this quote that I heard recently. It blew my mind. Mm-hmm. It said, "This is why we write stuff
down." I love that you write things down.
This is why we write stuff down. My guy.
Yeah, me too.
The quote is in here somewhere, and and after this quick commercial break, what the flip?
Well, I think while you're looking for that,
maybe I write too much.
No.
Got it.
Well, all right. Well, I was going to say, while you're doing that, though, I think that's a good tip for listeners and viewers. Write things down.
Yeah.
You know, I noticed, that sometimes, I see this happening around here. As interesting points are brought up, people are writing them down. I do the same thing, right? And I've got boxes of these things. And I go back through these sometimes. That was brilliant. How can I apply that to my life? Adam said that. Wow, that's really powerful. Because you have to be a student of life, right? There's a reason why we've been given the gift of words to communicate, to learn, to expand our horizons. But tell me about your quote on wisdom.
The quote I heard was, "Good decisions come from experience. Experience comes from bad decisions."
There you go.
And I think what's really, really beautiful about it is it provides a sense of comfort to the idea of failing. It opens up this door where it's like, oh, cool, you failed, it didn't go well. How can we make it better next time? You know what I mean? How quick are you gonna get back on your feet and bull rush this thing one more time? You know what I mean? Rather than the self-destructive mindset where it's like you fail one time and you just start spiraling down into it's never gonna work and this is not for me and I'm just a failure and blah 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 blah. But rather, once again, it gets you back on your feet quick enough to where it's just part of the plan.
Well, clearly, right? The funny thing is that this failure is really just that necessary struggle that we ought to be calling learning, right? Think about, you try anything new. One of my mantras is everything is hard until it gets easy. It just is. When you try anything new, you are going to fail at it. No one came out of the womb as an Olympic gold medalist. Yeah. It took lots of years of struggle and failure until you get comfortable with it, right? And that is one of the things I guess I wish I would have been able to handle a little bit better with my son, in that he did not like failure. He didn't like being bad at things. I wish that I could have given him more comfort. Like, no, this uncomfortableness you feel is only because you're new at it. It's like anything. The first time you go to the gym, it sucks.
You're lost.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, what do I see all these people, I seem they know what they're doing. I don't know what I'm doing here, right? So I would try to have conversations with him about this. I'll get a little bit personal here for a second. Shortly after my former spouse and I separated, we agreed we're going to have our kids go through therapy because we didn't have the skill set to walk them through. And, big regret in my life that I wasn't able to make that thing work. But thank goodness we kind of came together, put our kids through therapy. And I remember the therapist talking to us afterwards, and she shared something that my son had said to her. And she was asking, like, how are things with your mom? How are things with your dad? Do you feel like your dad loves you? Do you feel like your mom loves you? And do you feel like pressure from either one of them? And so when she started talking about me, she said, do you feel like your dad has unrealistic expectations of you? He said, no. And the therapist said, well, do you have, what are your expectations, that you have for yourself compared to your dad? And he said, do you know my dad? And she said, well, tell me more. He's a black belt in martial arts. He's a rock star entrepreneur. He's a best-selling author. He's a Green Beret. How can I ever measure up to that? And that broke my heart.
Oh, man.
It broke my heart,
Like, so, in your head, doing all that's for him, like, you're like leading forward.
And he was looking at it like,
I'm not good enough.
How can I ever measure up?
Yeah.
to that.
Those are big shoes to fill.
Yeah, and so he must have been, I don't remember, young, like 8 or 9 or something like that. So at that point, I've got to approach this a whole lot differently. And so I started talking to him about the failures I'd had and the struggles that I had. It's got much more deliberate about it. To your point, is making sure that he understood that it hasn't always been sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows.
Yep.
It's been a lot of failure, a lot of mistakes, a lot of bad decisions. So I would encourage people to think about that. That I don't think we talk about failure enough, Phoebe. I don't.
No,
look at Instagram, for crying out loud. You better have the watch and the front seat full of cash and the scantily clad women, and it turns my stomach when I see that, because I know it's not the message we should be sending.
Mm-hmm. Not at all.
People are always watching. People are always watching us.
Oh, for sure. Oh, it's crazy. It's actually crazy because, like, I heard that a long time ago from I don't know where. Like, oh, people watch your journey indirectly. And I thought, how? People don't care. But, like, they don't care, but, like, in a weird way. Like, I'll have people, like, randomly who I haven't seen in, like, 5 years, 6 years. They bump into me and they're like, oh, dude.
Yeah.
Inspire me on this. This is so cool what you're doing. And I'm like, what? Like,
yeah. It can be as big as that, or it could just be the way that you treat the barista at your local coffee shop. Yep. Someone in line is watching you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you can inspire them, or you could sicken them, depending on how you treat that person.
I think, so just from a lot of personal experiences that I've had, I've always recognized, like, I just have, like, this intimidating look as a unit. Right,
the unit,
and I feel like people often, like, kind of like just misjudge me just based off of first look. And the thing is, it's like I never get upset about it because I understand, right?
Even though you look upset about it,
it's just my resting face, right?
Right.
But I've had so many experiences in life where just because of, and I don't mean to flip and toot my own horn right here, but it's like just because they've witnessed firsthand how I've treated a janitor, for example, or how my mannerisms were in certain situations, it completely turned 180 their judgment about me.
Yes.
And it was one of those things where it's like I kind of, like, in a sense, like I had to pinch myself just to be like yo, recognize the situation and always put your standard for your character above everything, because they're going to notice.
Yeah, that's right.
And even if they choose to not notice and they still want to misjudge you, the only way you can prove them wrong is how?
That's right.
By just doing what's best.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's a huge point.
I'm glad you shared that. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
No,
but I have more questions.
Yeah, ask, man. Go ahead.
I've noticed you've mentioned therapy a couple times now.
Yeah.
And I respect the fact that the world is kind of like moving towards this idea of recognizing that mental health isn't something we just keep under the rug for ourselves. Right. So I guess therapy is obviously an answer, but as men, right? This is a question that I've kind of been asking recently, like myself, really. I've even asked the homies like a few times.
Yeah.
Who do you go to that is, are you familiar with the social onion?
Yes. And
you're familiar, like, the core of the onion is the people who they're not just, like, close to you, but they're the people that you go to open up about the hardest parts of your life.
Social penetration theory. That's what you're referring to.
Yeah. Who do you go to?
Yeah.
As a man with all of our pride, all of our ego, all of our stature, everything we stand for, and, the idea that it's like, no, we don't feel pain, we don't feel emotion. Who do you go to just absolutely open up to?
Yeah, so there's a thing called discernment, right? I'm not going to go into a business meeting and just spill my guts.
Right.
That's one extreme. The other extreme is that every Wednesday I get together with 3 of my friends, right? And we've been doing this for years. Every Wednesday we get together. I should say every week we get together. Generally it's Wednesday. If we can't be together on a Wednesday, we do it on a Tuesday or a Thursday. But every week, without fail, we get together, we have dinner together, and then we spend about 90 minutes sharing and holding each other accountable. And we have a commitment that everything we say, now, and then we all say this, in strictest confidence. I know that nothing will leave that room that we're in. And we go deep. And sometimes tears are shed, and sometimes there's joyful moments that are shared. But I know that there are things there that they know about me that my former spouse doesn't know about me, right? And so I think it's one of the most powerful things that a man can do is have communion, okay?
Yes.
With other men. This lone wolf BS that we've been sold is
John Wayne.
Yes, it's a lie.
Yeah.
It makes for great movies. The John Wayne.
Looks cool.
It makes for great romance novels. It sounds great on a meme,
mysterious,
right? But it's a lie. I mean, even in the military, snipers have got spotters. You got a swim buddy when you're in a scuba team. You know, you've always got someone by your side, right? So I think that that's critical. So I've got a guy named Dave, Gavin, and Dan. We get together every Wednesday.
Shout out.
Shout out.
Shout out Gavin, dude. I don't know who you are,
Shout
Gavin.
out the
But,
squad. Shout out the squad.
Right. And we've had other people who say, hey, can I join you guys?
Hell no.
We keep it small. We keep it small. These are my warrior brothers, right?
Nice.
We share, common beliefs, and we don't agree on everything. We're not all the same political bent.
But that's what makes you guys so strong, though.
Of course, right? And we can kind of hammer out ideas. They say iron sharpens iron, right? And so that's kind of how we approach it.
I think there's such a power in powerful men coming to one table that have completely different opinions on life.
Yes.
Brotherhood.
And finding a middle ground on something.
The common
that they can all
ground.
relate
There's a
to.
power in
That's
brotherhood.
huge. I love that.
Well, but BB, I think it goes beyond just being friends, though.
Yeah.
Because friends will oftentimes, and especially family members, will tell you what you want to hear. Because they feel like we've got to live with this person. The small group that I've got, we're not just friends, we're allies. Yeah. Allies tell you what you need to hear, more than what you want to hear. They're willing to, give you the bad news.
When you don't want to hear
When
it.
you don't want to hear it. And even when it's uncomfortable for them.
Yeah.
The hard truth.
This truth thing we were talking about earlier, right?
So what you're explaining right now. Have you read the book Think and Grow Rich?
Oh yeah.
By by Napoleon,
Mm-hmm.
and he introduced a whole concept named mastermind, right? And that's exactly what is basically a mastermind is a group of individuals, like-minded individuals that get together.
He's such a thinking courage.
That get together and basically have these discussions, have these meetings every so often, and talk about business and talk about relationships and talk about just overall development. And then from that way, you're different from me. You're in a different career, you're a different avenue. That way you can give me different perspectives.
That's right. Yeah. So I run masterminds. And
at least nod your head.
Years ago when I started them, it was all about business. And I wanted to know, because I was leading these, inventory turn and number of sales calls and, debt service coverage ratios. That's what it was all about. And then when my marriage tanked, I'd realized I was missing the boat. That life is beyond the bottom line, In fact, life begins beyond the bottom line. And so I developed this tool called a whole health spider graph that we check in. Like, we actually measure this. Yeah, I want to know about your professional health, but I want to know about your relationship health, the health of your family, your spiritual health, your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health. So there's 8 spans on this thing, and we check in and we measure it all the time. And I was just going through this with Dave. Dave is my business partner. He's also in this men's group that we meet every Wednesday. And we were talking about this, that when you start measuring that kind of stuff, we track all of our clients who go through these mastermind programs. And on average, the average person who goes through this in 1 year, in the first year, sees a 67% increase in revenue in their business. They see something like a 33% increase in the health of their relationships, a 53% increase in their physical health, all while working 16% fewer hours. Isn't that an interesting dynamic? Yeah. You work less, but you see
way more
way more.
Because you're more focused, because you have a clear head.
Of course, you're healthier.
Yeah.
Right? You're not just focused. And the funny thing, and I wish I would have focused on this when I was, married, but I'd realized part of my, obsession with work was I wasn't getting my other needs met. My spiritual life was a mess. My emotional life was a mess. But when you start focusing on these things, that's beyond just the business thing, it's called integrity. You're integrated. All these other areas of your life are integrated. And we just become better humans.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Becoming better humans.
Would you say that you found kind of like an addiction from the productivity of your work life?
Yes.
And so it gave you a sense of fulfillment to block out anything else?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not a good addiction. It's like most addictions, right? You get so focused on that one thing because you get those adrenaline hits, the dopamine hits, that kind of thing. And listen, it can happen with promiscuous sex. It can happen with alcohol. It can happen with drugs. It can happen with gambling. So addiction to social media, whatever it is, right? Mine was to business and to deals and,
making money.
Making money and seeing the upticks.
The next hotel, the next,
Yeah. And it's not healthy. So I would encourage people, focus on the important things in life. Yes, money can change a lot of things, for sure. I grew up without money. I've had money. I've lost money. It's nicer to have money, for sure, because it does, some of it deployed wisely can bring freedom. And money can solve a lot of life's woes. Crying out loud. Wouldn't it be nice if somebody came to you, Adam, and said, hey, I've got this, fill in the blank on the charity, right? And you say, wow, I love that. And you're able to write a $5,000 check.
Yeah, for sure.
Isn't that's a good thing?
Yeah,
versus saying, wow, good luck with that. Sounds awesome.
No, I agree. I was, I'm sure you know Patrick but David, right?
Of course.
So he was actually, he got asked the question, like, does money buy happiness? Because he just recently sold PHP, and I think he got a $300 million check from it. So, he's doing well for himself. And he said, money has given me access to sustain a happy life for all my extended family members.
Right.
And he's like, that, I totally agree. He's like, I would much rather have it than not.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a real perspective, because a lot of people, like gurus, they just want to be like, oh, no, it doesn't. Oh, focus on passion or whatever the heck that means, right? But I liked his answer because it was very real.
Yes.
He's like money's a tool.
It's a man's answer too.
Yeah.
Because once you accept the responsibility that if not you, then who?
Well, no, because he was talking about how, like, he took his family, his extended family, 63 people, on a cruise trip.
Yeah.
And he's like, I was looking at them all together, just swimming, having fun, living the life of their dreams, like, and all paid for. And, like, didn't even worry about it. He's like, experiences like that make me realize being rich is definitely worth the hard work.
Well, something similarly to that, after my former spouse got remarried and I was still a single guy, I was taking my kids on trips every year, like to Europe or to Mexico or whatever, giving them experiences that they never would have had. That I grew up in the working poor family. The most money my father ever made was $18,200, I think, a year with 5 kids.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah. And so we didn't travel. We didn't go out of state or out of the country and go do great things. And so, we'd go to Europe a couple times a year, to New York or Mexico or whatever it was, just to give them experiences so they could see things outside of Orange County, California. Right? Because we kind of live in a bubble here. It's not a bubble, man. It's not reality. And so I wanted them to see what the world was like. And that doesn't come free.
No, for sure.
You got to have some income in order to do that. And I think that's one of the lessons I kind of have always recognized, is that yes, money's good, but I'd rather have experiences. If I could bundle up all my experiences into a box so that I can pull those out and say, wow,
No, it was cool. That was cool. I feel like money buys experiences. You know,
it can certainly help get you experiences, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. For sure. Well, Larry, this has been awesome.
Yeah. Are we tight on time?
No, we're chilling, but
cool, because I have more questions.
Yeah, bring it on.
So we're kind of like circling back now.
Okay.
When it came down to really all the trials that you had to face during like COVID for your business and whatnot, what did some of the sacrifices look like that you had to make in order to stay alive?
Laying off 67% of our staff.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
That hurt. Mm-hmm. But I learned a lesson in 2008, I guess it was, well, let me go back. Was it 2001? There was the dot-com bomb, national recession, global recession, SARS. Some of us forget about SARS, the avian flu, right? That all happened in, around before 9/11, right? And then 9/11 hit, and that crushed the hospitality industry as well. SARS was important because it started in Asia, and all of my investments at that point were in San Francisco, in hotels up there, and so a third of that market came from Asia, and so we lost 40% of the value of all of our hotels in that 1 year. So that was rough, and at the same time we thought, well, we're younger, my partner and I, and we thought, well, we're not going to lay people off, right? We're going to hang in there. Well, it ended up going longer than we had thought, and we lost a lot of money. So when 2008 recession came around, I wised up and said, I've got to make the tough decisions, because if I don't, the company goes under. These are the tough decisions business owners need to make, right? But it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, because you don't want to.
You don't want to.
No.
So one of the things that I did, though, is I stopped taking a salary. When the pandemic and when things first closed down, I didn't lay people off right away because it's, what was it, 14 days to flatten the curve, or 2 weeks to flatten the curve, whatever it was. And so we tried to keep everybody on board, but I could see the writing on the wall that it was going to go longer than this. And so I'd asked our vice presidents and directors at the time, hey, let's defer. If you can defer some of your compensation, great, like pay cuts, but we'll get you back. And so we did that, and I didn't realize that's not going to last. But I had stopped taking a paycheck in February. My last paycheck was February of that month. I've still not taken a salary since.
Your last paycheck was February what?
2020.
Oh, okay. So then when March hit, you made that decision right on the spot.
Oh, yeah. The decision I had made was I can't ask other people to tighten their belt and to sacrifice if
you're not leading the way.
Right? Because I was hearing stories that some of these business CEOs were squirreling up. They weren't talking to their staff. They were out buying boats and cars and that kind of thing while they were laying people off. Right? And I couldn't do that. So I feel like it's the leader's moral responsibility to sacrifice more than the team member. There's that, I'll butcher the actual thing, but what is it, noble oblige? There's a obligation of leaders, of nobility, that there's an obligation that comes with being a leader. And so you got to be willing to sacrifice. So there was that. There was a sacrifice of reputation, because it's humbling to actually say to the world, hey, this is really bad. The economy, the light switch on the hospitality industry has been turned off, and we're still trying to keep people employed. That was a big sacrifice. Instead of pretending that I got it all together and everything's sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows.
Are you still in the same office?
No, we closed the office. Everyone's working remotely.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
And so what we do, though, each day, just like we have done at some of the hotels, is we do a morning stand-up call. So we start the day, everyone's on Zoom, and I would encourage people to consider doing this if you've got teams. So at that morning check-in call, It's very brief, not a lot of BS, but everyone has to start with, so we go around the horn, what are they grateful for that day? That has to be the first thing out of your mouth. Mm-hmm. I'm grateful for this, and people list a variety of different things. And then, what did you accomplish yesterday, and what are your plans for today? And we just go around the horn with it. So stopping and saying, hey, here's what I'm grateful for, I think it's a way to honor God and our existence here. And by the way, I've got atheists on my team, I've got Muslims on my team, and Christians, and we used to have Wiccans on my team, and we got a variety of different people, right? But I think that's a common bond. Just being grateful, have a spirit of gratitude is really super powerful. But sacrifices, there's a lot of sacrifice, being able to just go out and buy and be free. And
would you say you knew what you were doing as you were going through all of this during COVID, or you were just kind of?
We were all winging it, I think. You were talking about masterminds earlier. One of the things I was trying to do is call other CEOs, particularly hotel CEOs, and there was fear in people's voices because so many people were so over leveraged at that point. They knew what was about to happen.
Yeah.
Right, and there was panic. And I know people who have taken their own life, since, because of this, because it was just like, their self-worth was so tied to their net worth and to their reputation that's a terrible thing to do. Because what happens? Your net worth is up, your self-worth is up. Net worth goes down, and that's ugly. It's an ugly place to be.
Thanks.
So I started calling other CEOs and business owners and saying, hey, I'm here. I don't know. I don't have any answers either, but if you ever just want to talk confidentially, because oftentimes, as leaders, we don't have a lot of other people that we can talk to.
Go to.
Yeah.
That's kind of why he asked you that question of guy
earlier,
guy in your position
because
usually doesn't have a lot of people to go to.
100%. And then it's also like I can imagine that not necessarily just the idea where it's like my self-worth is high because of my net worth, but rather you have that moment where you're like, I'm supposed to be that guy who has everything under control, who has so much attached to my name.
Has the answers.
I have all the answers. People get motivation from me, inspiration from me, and then all of a sudden I'm that guy who's losing everything, and now I'm going negative.
Yeah.
All that pressure comes just raining on them, and so it could. I can totally see where it literally just gets to a point where they just break.
Yes. And so what I chose to do is get sad in private. I would feel sorry for myself for a short period of time, but then I would reach out to other people. But I'd realized that what people are really looking for is not someone who necessarily has the answers, but who's willing to go out and find the answers, do the work, persevere, be tenacious, not give up. I'm not one of these people who believe never, never, never quit. That's kind of a easy thing to say. Never, never, never quit. Well, sometimes you need to quit or you're going to drive your life off a cliff.
Yes.
Right? You have to be able to have wise people around you. You need to have discernment to say, these past few months or these past couple of years I've been working on this. This is not realistic. Realistically, I'm never going to be an NBA player or be an astronaut. I could put all this effort into it, but is that quitting, or is that after a certain period of time being aware enough to say, I've tried all of these things. I've spoken to all these experts. Enough is enough.
Yeah.
Saying enough is enough is different than quitting. Now, if I just give up the first time something gets hard, that's quitting.
Yeah.
And that lasts forever. Right? That kind of burden that what could have been. But saying, man, after all this wise counsel, going to my allies, going to my friends, talking to my mastermind members, talking to my mentor, it's time to shift course here a little bit.
Yeah, I think one thing that I think it was around last year. It's what is the true definition of a failure? Going back to the conversation we were having earlier, the true definition of failure, I've almost come to realize, is not necessarily someone who tries and does not achieve, but rather the true essence of failure is when someone is no longer willing to try. And that is where, you know, the category of failure falls upon that person. Yeah. Because the reality of the situation is no matter what it is, once you put effort into something, and I'm not talking about like, you know, trying to be an NBA player when it's, it's way past the time or whatever, but just in general in life, like when you've, let's say for example, you've hit a low point, you've lost everything. For you to sit at home and do nothing about it and not try anything ever again, that's going to be genuine failure. But if you were to just try your hand at the next thing, at a new idea, whatever the case is, the reality is once you put effort into something, there is going to be a return on that effort every single time. So the true essence of a failure is simply when someone stops trying.
And I would just add one other thing. Please. And they stop learning. Because can't you learn? Don't we learn more from our failures than we do from our successes?
That's facts, man.
Yep, you'd pay attention to the details of why you failed than why you succeeded.
Right. In the military, let me give a little bit of background, first of all, for folks who may have never heard this before. For years, for decades in this country, veterans were starting businesses at a rate 4 times greater than the general population. Okay.
What does that mean?
Like they were just more successful.
They were just starting businesses. At a rate 4 to 1. Veterans were starting businesses 4 times more often than a non-veteran.
Okay, so for everyone, average Joe, 4 veterans have started a business.
We're starting businesses. Okay. Some of the businesses that we used every day now were started by veterans. FedEx, GoDaddy, Little Caesars Pizza, Nike. The list is long, right? The number one indicator of success for the Small Business Administration is veteran status. Okay, Korn Ferry did a survey that showed that veterans are 1.8 times more likely to succeed in business than non-veterans. So there's something about veterans, right? And I've really narrowed this down. I've done a lot of study on this. There are a lot of people who say, well, yeah, they're more disciplined, or they know how to lead, or they know how to follow, right? And I was sharing this story with some folks last night, that a couple of things about this. Veterans also know how to serve. You used the word serve here a minute ago. When they go into the military, they go into the service, and they get out of the military and they continue to serve in business. But 2 other things that I think tie into what you were just talking about, BB. They do after-action reviews. In the military, after a training exercise or after a mission, you come back and you have your team, and without placing blame, you say, or you ask yourselves, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? And how can we improve the next time around? How often in business do we have a failure and we just accept the failure, or we go on? But getting deliberate about what we do right, what we do wrong, and how can we improve the next time. So I think veterans know how to serve, they know how to do after-action reviews, and then the third thing is this: they develop contingency plans. They plan for failure. Because no plan survives contact with the enemy. You can have the best of plans, but as soon as those rounds start coming down range, those plans go out the window. You probably heard that quote by Mike Tyson.
I love that.
Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Getting punched in the face might be
funny. That's funny because even to kind of like tag on to that, it's like you can have the best strategy in war, but you always go into that strategy. You always go into it thinking, we might not come back.
That's right. That's right. And so if you go into it and you just plan for the failure, and I don't mean I'll accept the failure. I mean, no, like things are going to go to hell in a handbasket. So if this happens, then we're going to try this. We have a contingency for it. If that happens, we're going to try this. And you go 5 layers deep. And so have you ever done that for a marketing plan that you've done?
No.
Most of us haven't.
Yeah.
But it's natural for veterans to do that because they did it throughout their military career.
Wow.
So I think does that mean that you guys need to go join the military? No. But I think if we get it in our heads that if we're in business or if we're in a leadership position, our job is to serve our stakeholders, our team members, our clients, our investors, those types of people. So serve first. Do after-action reviews, like we just talked about, and have contingency plans. And that's a good way just to live your life, not just
in
business.
Yep.
I love it. I think this is a good way to wrap up because we're about to blow up on batteries.
Well, I mean, you know me. I got more questions. So.
Yeah, I know. No,
let's come back and do a part 2. How about that?
We'll do.
We don't got 100%. More battery.
You're local, right?
For sure.
Yeah, right up the street.
We're actually losing battery.
Cool. No, we're out of battery. That's why. So, Larry, I do appreciate you for hopping onto the show, man.
Yeah, what an amazing episode, man.
I'm telling you guys. I told you you're gonna.
I wasn't ready for this. That's the thing about it. I wasn't ready for this.
Well, I had no idea we were gonna go with theology. So,
no, we went. Dude, what a roller coaster of a podcast.
I know something. As much as I wanted to prepare questions about business, I'm so glad this went the way it went.
True.
Yeah, me too.
This couldn't have gone better. This was amazing.
Good.
No, I say this in front of your face, behind your back, and in public. Larry is one of the very few people that I've met in my very small amount of years in my career so far that I genuinely look up to, and I think you're a very stand-up guy, man. So I really appreciate everything you're doing for the community, for everybody around you, and for always kind of pushing through. So because I met a lot of, we were just talking about it at the mosque, in social media space, there's a lot of facade and a lot of fake.
Yeah.
And talking to you always reminds me, like, okay, there's something to push for. There's good people out there. You know? So I definitely appreciate your time, man. And anything you want to promote, you're working on any projects at all you want to bring up?
Always working on books, always working on teaching programs. I mean, anyone can follow me on social media. It's just at Larry Broughton on most of the social media platforms. And my website's thelarrybroughton.com. And I'm doing a little bit of, starting to do more TV again. Did a lot of TV prior to the pandemic, but that's starting to pick up again. Just kind of talking about entrepreneurship and leadership.
Very cool.
Principles. So
very cool, man. It. Well, definitely appreciate you a ton for hopping on.
Yeah, thanks,
show.
buddy.
Thank
Good to
you
see
so much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Awesome.